Hey guys, welcome back. Jennifer Hobbs here, and I have the pleasure of being with Anina Blankenship. Hi, Anina.
Hello, hello.
Anina is
Thanks for
joining
having
us.
me.
Oh, it is our honor. My honor. Let's be real. I'm bragging now. I am so excited that you are on Celebrate the Struggle today. For those listeners that may not know, which I won't be able to have this connection with all of my guests, but you and I go way back, like all the way to probably 17 years old. Were you
Oh my gosh.
17?
Yes.
Like, yeah. So like I joined the military around 17 years old, and that's when I met this pretty little face. But she's not just a pretty little face, like probably the most hardcore person I know. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're here to talk about. Well, that, but in a different sense. This is Anina Blankenship. She is a boss babe. I'm just going to sum it up to that. No, I'm not. I'm going to elaborate. She is a licensed clinical social worker, a certified professional is it professional coactive coach? I
Yes, you
yeah,
did.
and board certified. So yes, when I said that she's a boss babe, I was not lying. So she is here, and I'm happy to have you on the show. So tell us, let me back it up a little bit. Yeah, no, I think I covered it all.
You did.
the
You got
the
it.
the listeners may not know this, and I'm not sure when exactly this will air, but this is the first recording for Celebrate the Struggle. So
Yes.
trying to make sure I cover all my bases. So it's even more of an honor to have you here to
No.
launch this journey with me. But with that being said, Anina, I've given a little bit of an introduction to you, not to mention that you have been one of my homies for years and quite a role model. But tell us a little bit about you, yourself, your family, and like maybe a little bit about who Anina is. Where'd she come from?
Yeah. Oh man. So I'm like, where to begin? So just to kind of
Right.
the basics. Yeah, I grew up in Central Illinois. Um, it was a pretty typical, middle income two-parent household. I'm one of three, right smack dab in the middle, so I have a little bit of that middle child syndrome. um, I yeah, it was a very very loving environment that I grew up in. But my parents, they worked a lot. They worked a lot, so we just always basically had different caretakers, babysitters, um, just be there with us all throughout the day when we weren't in school. So was raised, it felt like, by like a lot of different people, but I really do feel like it helped to just kind of shape me as well. So I was always very interesting. The different babysitters that we always had, and the tricks we would play on them, when they were brand new, and all that fun stuff, just taunting them, like
Uh-huh. I love that you share that. Like, here we're only a couple minutes in, and like knowing you for over 20 years, and I didn't know that about you. Like, I didn't know that like you had, a life with two parents and like caretakers, because your parents worked a lot. I didn't know that about you. Our conversations were more like, can you watch my weapon while I go to the bathroom? Or like, do you have any
Right.
chocolate in your room? So it's interesting that I've already learned more about you after 20 years. And
Oh.
one thing I didn't, so Central Illinois and the middle child, thank you for your honesty on middle child syndrome. I love it. And so you joined the military.
Yes.
Were you
Yeah.
a rebel in high school, Anina?
You know, I geez, what? I kind of got like my rebelness out. Well, I feel like it came in different waves. So probably like eighth grade, ninth grade, I was a rebel, and then I kind of shaped up for a while, and then like in college again, I kind of like went back to those rebel waves that were still
Sure.
brewing within me. So I had like little periods where kind of
Like,
off
was
and
it
on.
Was it more like college before Iraq or college after Iraq?
It was more college before Iraq.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. I was just,
What
yeah,
made you
doing a lot of
decide
things.
to join the military? Because, oh, I mean, I didn't mention that in your introduction. You are a combat veteran, and that's how I
Yes.
know you. We served amongst each other. Now she works for the VA, and we're going to get more into that in a little bit. But why did you join the military?
Yeah. So it was, oh man, for one, it was just, I always just had this like desire within me, even as like a young child, just wanting to just do something great. And I remember one of our neighbors, our next door neighbors, I just remember I really looked up to him, and he had served in the military. And I just thought he was like this awesome, genuine guy. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, maybe this is like, how you get all that and join the military.
Right.
So it was part of that. And then also, one of my like really good friends that we actually served with, together in Iraq,
Yes.
Joseph, he joined and he told me about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do this. So I was like, okay, we're going to do it. He's doing it. I'm doing it. And then, it was that piece of it too. And then once I found out, the help with college as well, it was something that I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. And I mean, Joseph is pretty awesome. I would follow him toward anything that he go. Like if he's like, we're gonna jump off this cliff, I'd be like, okay, I believe you, Joseph. Let's go. But
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
if
Yeah. Such a great
only
guy.
the listeners knew him.
Yeah.
But so that's cool. I know the answer to this question, but tell our listeners what job in the military you took, and when you were like how many years you served, and your history with any deployments.
Yes. Yeah. So
Hmm.
I was an 88 Mike, which was a truck driver. I mean, basically a truck driver, right? Yep. Beep beep. Here I come.
Hmm.
And I know looking back, I like just totally laugh now because I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so funny. I think I was really like wrapped in with it too because my recruiter at the time, was like, hey, this is the one that has the sign-on bonus. And I was like, oh my gosh, like whatever it was,
Me
like
too,
four
girl.
grand sounds amazing, right? So I was
Oh, I
like,
beat
say no
you. I
more.
beat you. I got 6 grand. Yes,
Oh,
say no,
snap.
say no more is right. That was kind of
Yeah.
where and that's where I leaned toward.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it was just kinda like, yeah, when you're, like, in high school and you hear that amount of money, I mean, heck, even now, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money." I mean, it is.
I know.
Yeah. So my eyes were, like, spinning. I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
mean, I
yeah.
wouldn't sign up for the military again, but 6,000 sounds like a great idea.
Yes.
But I want
Yes.
to bring our listeners back to that comment right there where you had said, yeah, you like beep beep honk honk. It's so funny because like for our listeners, like they're going to hear and see the Nina that I've told you about, the Nina that like the kind-hearted, sweetest, most like kindest, I already said kindest person like that our entire unit has ever met. However, it's like one of those things like don't let this fool you. Don't let this pretty face fool you. So as you're saying, like beep beep, like get out of my way. What's funny, listeners, and you must know this, Anina, one other connection we have together is that she was my husband's driver during the year in Iraq. And not only was she his, and he was a 50 cal gunner on the back of a truck, not only was she his driver, but like he would get very protective of her, like no, she's driving me, or like I had heard rumors about, when your A driver would get a chance and how he'd like scold him, Cruz. I know he'd be fine if we said his name on here, but how he
Yeah.
would like curse him out and scold him for his mistakes, but he would never do that to you. So when you hear Nina and her so kind self be like, yep, truck driver, beep beep, understand, like that is one truck driver you don't want to mess with, that's for sure. So
Oh man.
so
Memories,
that's
they're all coming
I know,
back.
I know. I have so many photo albums. Uh so with that being said, that took you into the National Guard, where you then went on deployment. And your first deployment was same as mine, right? At the
Yes.
beginning December 2003.
Yes.
How did
Yep.
you feel uh, on the day they called you and told you that you were getting mobilized?
Oh man, that's
Were
so
you like
funny.
in shock, or like, how were you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was um yeah, I will definitely say I was in shock. Like, I've always heard the like where it just feels like time stops and everything like stops moving. And totally totally felt like that. And it's like almost I just felt like I had like this blank slate. I didn't even know what to think. Like there was no thoughts even coming to me. Yeah, it was like total shock. And I remember just like sitting there at the kitchen table in my apartment and just like, oh my gosh, like what is about to happen? Like my life is about to be turned around and I don't even know what to expect, have no context of what to even put it into. Like I've never experienced something like this before. So um yeah, I was very, oh man, yeah, very shocked.
I know, takes you
Yeah,
back, doesn't it?
it does. It truly does. Um Yeah, and I think I did a really good job, which is not a it was a protective mechanism, but it's not helpful, I have found out, but just kind of um, really trying to avoid processing anything. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like I just went through the motions and was like, okay, they told me I need to go let my teachers know this, that I'm going to be leaving, like my professors know, and do this and do that and do that. So it's just like I was just very like, I don't know, just very methodical in like what I did, and didn't really think about it. It was just like I was told to do this, I'm going to do this and not put too much thought into it. I think because that
Yeah,
was when, yeah, it felt scary to think about it. So I didn't think about it. I just kept going and moving.
I
Um,
I feel the same way. I feel like I was that same way, and there's all these different stigmas that exist in our society, and one of the ones that kind of makes me, well, they all make me cringe, but one of the ones that makes me cringe is when people were like, um when they kind of think, like, they assume that you are sensitive and fragile, and whereas they'll look at like Billy Bob over here and be like, oh, Billy Bob was born to kill, he was born for that. And they assume that, like, when you get that phone call, like Billy Bob's ready for that, when really maybe you don't really know what's going on in Billy Bob's head. Okay, I'll stop saying that
right.
name over and over, but that's exactly right. Like, and at the beginning there, it's so much shock for it was for me,
Yes.
and I'd be curious to hear how it was for other people. And so what would you say, because you and I both know that that was a tremendously difficult year for us and the 1544th and the family members of the 1544th.
Yeah.
What would you say, aside from the obvious trauma of losing our battles, what would you say was the hardest struggle internally, being away from home? And again, did you just find yourself disconnecting with things? Um, and then if you can't really, if you feel like you had disconnected a lot during then, what did you find were big struggles trying to make that transition back to the civilian world?
Yeah. Man. Yeah, I felt very hmm, yeah, I did. I felt very like disconnected from, the the loved ones back at home.
Yeah,
Talking to them on the phone, it just always felt like yeah, it just felt like there was, I don't know, something missing. Like and it just it was hard to like relate to them and be able to share what was going on. Didn't want to like make anyone scared,
yeah,
or yeah, cause any alarm. So it just always felt like it was very surface. So it just felt like having any deep conversations was really difficult. So I really did miss that. but I did really, learn to kind of disconnect. Yeah, definitely disconnect even from myself, and what I was feeling. And again, I know that's just I've learned, yeah, it's a protective mechanism, but just
Sure.
never letting myself feel. Yeah, and so I think that was like the hardest thing for me because then when I did start to feel, it felt really overwhelming. Um, Having lots of emotions flood my body at once. It was really challenging to deal with. And I think you even mentioned before, you remember being there one day where I just kind of
Yeah.
had a breakdown moment because it was just like, it's kind of like that pressure cooker. You can only take so much until it erupts, and I didn't do it like you would do like a Coke bottle, for instance, and just slowly let a little air out every once in a while. It just kind of exploded. It felt like because I held it in for so long.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because so a couple of things I want our listeners to know is all of those things that you just said right there. Like so many people are feeling that. I felt it. And so many people feel that in that transition home, whether you're transitioning back from a combat zone or you're just coming home from your active duty job and being thrown into a house full of screaming kids and a spouse that's maybe a little frustrated that she just had to spend 30 minutes waiting for the toddler to use the bathroom, and so like those feelings arise. And I hope that when people hear your story and other stories, I hope that they know that like this is, you're not alone, this is normal. and
Yeah.
and um there's no like perfect way to handle these emotions. However, there are healthy and unhealthy ways to handle them.
Yeah.
You said something else that I wanted to bring attention to, but before I sit here and pause and try to ponder it oh, yes, I got it. Was there anything, so you've mentioned what was a struggle as you returned transitioning back. What did you, or looking back on it, like my question for you is, what helped you or gave you a little bit of support in that transition back to the civilian world, or maybe even over the last, I shouldn't say 20 years because we're going to get to that question, but was there anything that helped you and supported you at the time? Or if it didn't, what do you think would have really helped?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have so many thoughts. I'm like, okay, which direction do I go in?
Yeah, you're like,
Um,
Jennifer, this was not in the questions you sent me. Inevitably, I really, we want to get our voices out there so that we can best help people. And so like, these are the biggest parts of the struggle in that transition. And so if we could give any advice or go back and have a do-over, what would it be?
yeah, I have thought about that before, and I think that resonates with me of like a do-over. Um, and I think it's almost like I think about like what would I tell my younger self now, kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I really think it what comes to me is just like and this is so basic, but it feels so just it really resonates with me of just slowing down, looking at being, yeah, looking at being a human being rather than a human doing. And I've spent a lot of life just doing that, go, 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 go. Um, and I think had I taken some time to really process the things I went through, um, I think I could have healed a lot sooner. And I'm grateful for the journey that it has taken me on. But just kind of looking back, I think had I actually known what I know now um, about mindfulness, knowing about how we keep a lot of stress within our bodies, and being able to like release that in healthy ways. I think just knowing some of those things would have really been beneficial for me. And also just I had a relationship with the Lord, but it wasn't as strong at that point
Hmm.
in my life. And I think yeah, sometimes I wish it would have been a little bit more defined for myself, because I think that really would have changed things, because I know now in my life
Sure.
it's really been really helpful for me.
Right.
Um,
I
yeah.
love that you said, I love that you said, you wish that you would have been more of a human being rather than a human doer. Like, I feel like that's advice that all of us could take now, no matter where
Yeah.
we are in the transition of our life. And you yourself have taught me about more about mindfulness, specifically like when I did something where you were teaching me about mindful eating, and then
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit of meditation. And
Yeah.
so let's move into that. You now, after this journey of struggling through all the different things, and if you want to bring attention to any more struggle or anything that the listeners that you want to share that they might be able to relate to, feel free to interrupt me and go there. But I want to tell the listeners about how you have now taken your struggle and have put it into practice. We could sit here and name off these beautiful licensed clinical social worker titles, but really when it comes down to it, our listeners have no idea that your specific job is in the VA, and you are doing things to bring to try and advocate for more of a, and correct me if I'm wrong, but more of a holistic whole health approach, and focusing on that post-traumatic growth rather than post PTSD, and just treating it with let's be honest, with meds. And so
Yes.
please tell our listeners a little bit about what you do at the VA, and what your hopes or the VA's hopes are, what your hopes are to see the VA or you have an impact on veterans and their families.
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, I do feel very, very grateful for being a part of whole health. And yes, like you said, it's a holistic approach. So it's really looking at these other modalities of care. So looking at the whole mind, body, and spirit. So we
Mm-hmm.
do, yeah. I offer some different, some resiliency classes that I teach, really just allowing our vets just to take a peek at what are some things that renew them and what are some emotions that deplete them. And then actually they get these devices that they can wear called a heart math device to see some of their different. You have one? Oh, that's awesome.
I just got one at a veteran retreat that I went to.
Oh, that
Okay,
is
I
so
don't want to
cool.
interrupt. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's Yeah, I love the whole concept behind it. I'd love to hear what you think too. I'm like, we'll have to talk offline about all this because it's so cool. But yeah, being able to really allow somebody to tap into what is happening within their body just empowers them to learn how to control these things. So when we're stressed, when we're anxious, learning different breathing techniques to even help us, um, and even mindfulness of imagining what these renewing feelings are that you want to give to yourself and radiate to others. So I could go on about that like class forever because I love it. But so I
Uh-huh.
have the opportunity to do that. Also doing health coaching with vets. So really working on, what their goals are, what is personally meaningful and important for them to work on, is what we do. So it's not me telling you what to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
the veteran sharing what they want. And I love that role of coaching too, of just looking at the veteran as someone who is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. The answers are within them, and just helping
Yes.
them to pull them out, like tell themselves what to do. Because we know there's so much power when we come to a conclusion on our own rather than someone else telling us,
Yes.
you should do this,
Yes.
you should do that.
Like you just got done saying, you just kind of made a full circle and came back to it. It comes to like realizing that like we actually have far more control over our
Yes.
bodies than like I think the fear and the things we've gotten used to feeling, and we feel out of control. I can't handle that, and it's actually not. And that's a that's a phantom. What's it called?
Yeah.
It's a phantom whatever.
Yeah, it makes me think of
uh
like a phantom limb kind of thing, like you hear sometimes, but
yeah,
like a phantom pain even too. But
imposter, that's the new one.
oh, the
Yes.
imposter syndrome. Yes.
Yes. I don't know
Yeah.
if that fits there, but that's what it feels like it reminds me of. So I think that is incredible. And actually, I mean, again, yeah, I want to tell our listeners, I'm not sure, I guess I should have been paying attention to how much time we're on, but who cares? That's neither here nor there. You didn't just come up out of all this struggle and become this amazing health coach and clinician. Like before that, you actually had like one of the hardest jobs that I, in my opinion, think is out there, working as a social worker for DCFS. And so that
Yeah,
I can only imagine brought a lot of trauma back to the surface, those
it
feelings,
did.
and
Yes.
then a lot of growth, I bet.
Yeah, yeah, it truly did. Yeah, it really kind of ripped a band-aid off a little bit, so to speak, of
Mm-hmm.
some things that I wasn't like dealing with. But yeah, it also kind of built some new traumas too.
Right.
But yeah, but I do feel like just even for my own self, like having, being involved in the VA, getting my care there, getting different therapies for my own self have really helped me to
Yeah.
like work through those things. And I have my own coach as well. So I feel I see the value in both looking at the past and then looking at where I want to go in the future with coaching. Um,
That's so cool.
yeah, yeah. And another cool piece too, I feel like fortunate to be doing too at the VA is working with vets with chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really appreciate like my position with that pain clinic as well, because we have so many vets who are struggling with chronic pain, and a lot of times it's invisible. We don't see it per se. So I really enjoy that piece of things too.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna have to talk to you more about that. Like maybe that's even something where like Anina needs a part two to talk to the listeners about these strategies. So with that being said, you, although are probably, let's be honest, the better half, you do have a very strong other half who also is a veteran and works at the VA. And you guys had your own podcast over the last year or two, Sound Mind Strategies. I personally was a listener, and you guys
Oh,
still continue to give, like, just all of you from DCFS social worker to helping veterans in the VA to giving time on this podcast. Like clearly, like you are a servant of God, and so like I love you. You know this, and you know that I admire you very much. But so with your goals, and you mentioned like what you would like for the future. Before actually, I got one more question
yeah.
before you jump on that celebratory train and tell us about like your hopes and dreams of like if money and resources weren't an option, like what you hope to have. But before you go and you get us all jacked up on what you're going to do to shake the world, will you share with us, and again I feel like this is probably going to need a part 3 and 4 with Anina, because I know that you're so knowledgeable on the different strategies and tools and just something just like heart math. What kinds of, if you had to pick, we'll have to pick 3. Okay, so if you could narrow it down to 3 self-care strategies or habits or things you make sure to include in your day that you make yourself do as self-care, what are 3 things that you do either physically, mentally, or spiritually, and you try to commit to them every day because you see that it has a positive effect?
Yeah, reading the Word of God, I would say, working on like my relationships, like with my husband, with family, and then also I really love moving my body. I like to run or bike or do weights, just something to kind of work
Yes.
on like all parts of my spirit man, mind, body, and spirit. So yeah, I feel like those things really hit those those needs of mine.
No doubt. And you do like one for each category. So clearly you're winning at life. Thank you for sharing that. Note to self, be more like Anina. Just kidding. Okay, so let's wrap up the show and tell our listeners what Anina's hopes and dreams are to be like, because, you know, people are going to be listening to this. And one of the ways that I've been able to step out of my comfort zone and really start reaching for what I want to see is opening my mouth and making those connections. So someone might hear you talk about what your hopes and dreams are and get inspired or be like, I want that too, you know, and not to mention just knowing that, you know, we are like 21 years old, and we still have hopes and dreams, like that it's good to keep dreaming, like always let it be, always keep dreaming. So what are your hopes and dreams from here?
Yeah. So, earbuds died. I had to change them.
It's fine. You sound great still.
um, yeah, it's, I do, we do want to get our podcast going back up again. That was really just born out of, a lot of the struggles that I really didn't even mention, but I feel like we need like that part two, but just really sound mind strategies was born from 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. And those were things that I really, really struggled with fear, my thoughts of just, anyways, wanting to do very unkind things, I guess, to myself throughout my life. So I feel like that platform was really helpful for me to share my story. And I know I have more story in me to share. And so I want to keep, we really want to get that podcast going back up. And I think 5 years done before that. Because we have all the things to do it again. So, so that, and then also sharing my story through publishing, having my memoir done. As you know, I'm working on it right now.
Yes.
It's kind of it's been a slow process, but it's a process. And I'm just trying to be kind to myself through that process.
Right. I wrote a book in like 17 years, Anina. So you be kind, you give yourself grace. But, you know, as you make these dreams come true, and as you guys, when your podcast does get back up and going or whatever it is, I'm going to update the description on this podcast. That way people know how they can reach you and the second better half. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna have Evan on the show too, so be looking forward to that. And if you have any questions for one last thing before we bid you farewell, how could a veteran who wants to, where could they start? I know for myself, I know with the, I got some help going toward the whole health directive. Who could they walk into the VA? Would it be their general practitioner and say, hey, I want to know more about this whole health approach? What would you suggest to veterans if they're interested in learning more about the whole health approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, I would say just go to your primary care provider, let them know. Like I know in St. Louis, where I'm based out of, they have a whole health unified consult. So the provider can put that in, the social worker can put that in, really anyone that you're working with, therapist, anyone can place that consult. So I would just say to bring it up to whoever you're working with, whoever maybe you see the most, so they can place that consult. Or, send your provider, one of your providers, like a secure message through My Healthy Vet, and just let them know that's something that you want to do. Or I even know for us too, there's like a direct line you can call to speak to someone in whole health. So your other people's facilities may have that as well. So lots of different ways to be able to get involved in it. And you will not regret it.
One way to definitely start, you said it right there, getting on My Health Vet, like
My Healthy Vet, yes.
Setting up that account for sure.
Yes.
So
yep.
Check into that. I was going to say, and now I had a brain fart, so hopefully I can edit this part out. But I don't know. All right, so Thank you, Anina. Thank you guys for tuning in to hear a little
Yeah.
bit about Anina's story. Thank you, Anina, for being comfortable with getting uncomfortable, and so that we can celebrate the struggle together and just give it its space, own it, and see how it has made us who we are. Even if in
Yeah.
this very moment, if you're listening and you're a hot mess, you're here, you're listening, you have persevered to this point, and we can understand, we can relate. So thank you
Yeah.
for being here, and we'll be looking forward to part 2 of Anina Blankenship.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.